I have lived with Chen Wangjin for 3 years. We occasionally have sex but never kiss. It's the purest relationship between people who are only interested in food and sex. Until one day, I accidentally saw him being intimate with his secretary and allowing her to enter his private space. I understood and tactfully vacated the place. On the night I left, I sent him a text message as a farewell. I'm going back to my hometown to get married. Let's not contact each other anymore in the future. Later, I saw off my blind date. As I turned around, I met Chen Wangjin's gaze. He could no longer maintain his gentle and rational mask. He lost control and cornered me. What's so good about him compared to me? Money, power. Or is he better at serving you than me? As it was almost time to get off work, there was a sudden heavy rain. My colleague Ji and Mion forgot to bring an umbrella and came to me to share mine. I didn't refuse. As I lowered my head and opened the umbrella, I heard Ji and Mion say enviously, surely being a secretary is good. Being close to the water gets the moon first. Secretary Su has only been here for 3 weeks and can already share an umbrella with President Chen. After 3 months, won't we all have to call her Mrs. Chen? I raised my eyes. My gaze passed through the rain curtain and fixed on the 2 figures walking side by side under the open black umbrella. Chen Wangjin strode ahead, and Su Yu trotted behind him. She ran so fast that she lost her balance. With a cry of surprise, she fell to the ground. It was Chen Wangjin who reached out in time and supported her by the waist. This scene happened just right, like a classic in an idol drama on TV. I withdrew my gaze, shook the umbrella handle, and thousands of raindrops fell to the ground, creating ripples. Aren't you leaving? If the rain gets heavier, we won't be able to leave later. I reminded. Seeing that I didn't respond, Ji and Mion poked my arm helplessly. That's President Chen, who is young, promising, and has a good moral character and is placed on a pedestal by everyone in the company. Aren't you at all tempted? After saying that, without waiting for my answer, she put on a look of Zishi, holding her heart and sighed. Anyway, seeing someone else take the passenger seat next to President Chen first makes my heart ache very much. I was amused by Ji and Mion's dramatic appearance. I took out the car key and pressed it. The lights of the Audi parked by the roadside lit up. I raised my hand and lifted her chin, smiling. You may not be able to sit in President Chen's passenger seat for the time being. Do you want to sit in mine? It took a little longer to send Ji and Mion home. When I pushed the door open, Chen Wangjin had just placed the last dish on the table. He was wearing comfortable home clothes. The apron he was wearing seemed to be a couple style given by the mall during the last purchase. Illuminated by the warm yellow light above, the inhumane aura that Chen Wangjin had cultivated in the business world disappeared completely. Only a gentle and soft atmosphere remained. Chen Wangjin came forward, took the bag from my hand, and hung it on the coat rack. Then he bent down and took out slippers for me and placed them at my feet. His fingertips naturally landed on the ankle strap of my high heels, and the warm touch was transmitted to my cold skin. I stiffly took half a step back and refused Chen Wangjin's help. I'd better do it myself. Chen Wangjin was stunned but didn't say anything. I made your favorite pumpkin cup with spare ribs. Go wash your hands and eat while it's hot. I silently changed my shoes and walked towards the sink. As the water flowed through my fingers, my thoughts emptied. During the 3 years of living together, Chen Wangjin and I actually did many improper things. Helping to take off shoes is just a trivial matter. But just now when Chen Wangjin approached, a strange sense of resistance suddenly surged in my heart. I know the reason but don't want to admit it. It's because of Su Yu and also because of myself. In these 3 years of getting along day by day like a frog being slowly boiled in warm water, I forgot that our beginning was just a confusion after getting drunk. I forgot that his kindness to me was just out of good upbringing. I uncontrollably fell into it and confused physical needs with love. Su Yu's appearance gave me a wake-up call. Fortunately, it's not too late to pull out now. I ate this meal listlessly. After only eating a small half bowl, I put down my chopsticks and went upstairs to wash up. When I came out of the bathroom, Chen Wangjin was waiting outside. His brows were slightly knitted, and the gaze that rested on me was filled with worry. For a moment, I didn't know what attitude to take towards Chen Wangjin, so I just ignored him. At the moment we passed by each other, Chen Wangjin grabbed my wrist. He held it very tightly, as if he wanted to leave an indelible red mark on my wrist. You today? I sensed what Chen Wangjin wanted to ask. So, I spoke first. Do you want to do it? Surprise flashed across Chen Wangjin's eyes. I didn't give him a chance to react and kissed him. But gradually, the initiative was taken by Chen Wangjin. His palm pressed against the back of my head, and the originally tentative kiss deepened. Chen Wangjin couldn't even wait to go back to the bedroom a few steps away. He pushed me back into the bathroom. The hot and humid steam in the bathroom hadn't dissipated yet. Through the thin nightgown, I was pressed against the tiles. Cold and wet. Chen Wangjin was the only heat source I could cling to. I could only wrap my arms around his neck and be forced to bear everything he brought. I bit my tongue to suppress the tremor at the back of my throat. As if this was a competition. Speaking first is like showing one's cards and losing everything. I don't want to lose too embarrassingly. Thin sweat dampened my hair on the forehead. Chen Wangjin reached out and pushed it aside for me. He lowered his head and lovingly kissed away the tears that overflowed from me. Don't hold back. Call my name, okay? Again. Chen Wangjin is always like this. With a soft and coaxing tone, he weaves an illusory world of love and makes me fall into it. Before the restrained sobs could escape, I bit hard on Chen Wangjin's shoulder. Even after tasting the bloody taste in my mouth, I still didn't let go. Chen Wangjin groaned in pain and then helplessly chuckled in my ear. I really can't do anything with you. In the end, I lost all my strength. I was carried back to the bedroom by Chen Wangjin. In a daze, I felt my left hand being gently stroked. I curled my fingertips and asked in a hoarse voice, "What's wrong?" Chen Wangjin seemed surprised that I was still awake. He covered up by coughing softly and interlocked his fingers with mine. Nothing. Go to sleep. Everything that happened on that rainy night dried up with the bright sunny day. I was on a business trip for more than half a month and was so busy that I had no time to think about it anymore. So, when I carried my suitcase and entered the password. But when I bumped into Suyu head-on, for a moment, I inevitably felt stunned. Suyu was wearing a lace-suspended dress. At a glance, I recognized that it was the one I had stuffed in Chen Wangjin's closet. Suyu's eyes were filled with joy. After seeing that it was me, her expression turned into a hidden hostility. She curved her lips and smiled, welcoming me in the tone of a hostess. "Miss Lin, is there something you need?" I rubbed my temples that were throbbing due to sleepiness. I didn't hysterically ask Suyu why she was here, nor did I ask where Chen Wangjin was. I just gave her a calm smile. "I'll pack some things and leave soon." After living here for 3 years, I ran up and down several times before packing all my belongings. Even the pot of roses I raised on the balcony was not spared. Although it was Chen Wangjin who watered it all these years. I had a lot of luggage. Suyu glanced at me and reminded, "Miss Lin should check carefully if there is anything missing." She raised her chin slightly. A small, cute and gentle face revealed a somewhat mean meaning. "After all, there is a new person here. Old things should be thrown out. If there is anything left behind, you can't be wrong to pick it up from the trash can." The curve of my lips didn't change. Now that you mention it, I do remember. I still have one last thing that I haven't taken away. My gaze swept over Suyu's body. With a flirtatious eyebrow, I said, "The nightgown you're wearing is mine. Do you want to take it off and give it to me?" "You." Suyu covered her chest. Anger flushed on her face. I didn't want to argue with her verbally. I waved my hand and said in a soft voice, "Forget it. I have. Give it to you." I took my heavy luggage and returned to the house I rented before. Even after living with Chen Wangjin, I never gave up this rental. Probably because I am too pessimistic. I think that everything that happened with Chen Wangjin is like a moon in the water or a flower in the mirror. Sooner or later, I will wake up from this dream. Fortunately, I am too pessimistic so that I can have a place to stay at this moment. I simply washed up. Unable to resist the sleepiness from being constantly on the go, I fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up again, it was already evening. Endless darkness engulfed me. Suddenly, there was a mist beat in my heart, and countless feelings of loneliness filled it. This feeling is like being abandoned by the world. Fortunately, such a mood didn't last long before it was broken by the sudden ringing of my mobile phone. I picked up. My mother's voice appeared in my ear. What she said was nothing new. It was nothing more than asking if I had eaten well and slept well, and if things were going smoothly at work. These were the same words she had been repeating over and over for years. I listened quietly and responded from time to time. In the end, there was a little choking in my mother's gentle voice. "Yin Yin, will you come back during the spring festival this year?" I didn't know why my mother would ask about the arrangements for the spring festival so early, but I still answered truthfully, not sure yet. What's wrong? There was a pause before she replied, nothing. Mom just hasn't seen you for a long time and misses you a little. These words were like a heavy hammer hitting my heart. A sour and dull feeling surged up. I come from a single-parent family. Since I was young, my concept of home has been very vague. My childhood memory only consists of my father who is idle all day and drunk every day. He has a bad reputation and is involved in all kinds of vices like eating, drinking, whoring, and gambling. When he won money, the days for me and my mother would be better. At least we wouldn't be beaten. But when he lost, it was different. He would lose his temper when drunk, grab my mother's hair, and drag her into the bedroom where only one light bulb was shining alone like a butcher dragging a prey to be slaughtered. The old house was in disrepair and the door didn't close tightly. At the age of only 5, through a narrow crack in the door, I was forced to watch my mother suffer. Inside the door, my mother's shrill screams rang out. Outside the door, I cried and banged my hands until they were bloody. I couldn't break open this door. I couldn't stop this torture from continuing. This kind of life lasted for a long time. Until the day when my father's fist with bulging veins hit me. My originally submissive mother suddenly rose up and resisted. She picked up a kitchen knife and waved it around randomly. You beast! If you dare to touch Yin, none of us will live. Her black hair was messy and the wound on her forehead was bleeding. At first glance, she looked like a ghost crawling out of the underworld. My father was frightened and left cursing. My mother put down the knife and suddenly lost strength. She pulled me into her arms. Tears soaked my hair drop by drop. My mother's voice was choked. Yin, don't be afraid. Mom will take you away. Later, my mother supported our family of 2 by herself. She worked desperately to make me succeed. All I can do is study hard, work hard, become outstanding and let her enjoy a happy life. But over the years, I only cared about making money and forgot that what she needed most was company. I looked at my savings. The string of zeros was enough for me to lie flat for the rest of my life. I no longer had a reason to stay in Beijing. After figuring this out, I spent a week handling the work that needed to be handed over and at the same time went through the resignation procedures. On the night I left, I was completely relaxed. I didn't even bring a suitcase. Just before boarding the plane, I sent Chen Wangjin the last text message. It's considered to draw an end to our 3 years. I'm going back to my hometown to get married. Let's not contact each other anymore in the future. Relieved of the burden of work, my days in my hometown are extremely idle. To keep myself from being too bored, I built a flower field in the small courtyard. Every day, I take care of flowers and plants and am quite comfortable. But my such quiet behavior made my mother alarmed. As they say, no one knows a daughter better than her mother. On the first day I came back, my mother noticed that there was something wrong with my state. But she didn't ask anything. I had no way to start, so I had to pretend to be confused. Song Lichuan, the son of your uncle Song, knows that you are back and said that he hasn't seen you for a long time. I was originally taking a nap in the courtyard basking in the sun. Hearing this, I half opened my eyes and responded vaguely. Seeing that there was no resistance on my face, my mother was slightly relieved and finished speaking. I thought that you are all young people and should be able to talk. So I agreed to his invitation for you. It's just going out for a walk and having a meal. If you always stay at home, sooner or later you will get sick from boredom. My mother implied something. I was in the wrong first, so I had to agree readily. Okay, then let's meet. Song Lichuan and I can be considered childhood sweethearts. On the night when my father was scared and rushed out of the door, my mother took all the savings at home and took me on a green train. After several transfers, we came to the current city. And Song Lichuan lives opposite my house. Song's mother is a very gentle person. When my mother is too busy to pick me up from school, she will take me with her and invite me to her house as a guest. When I stepped into Song Lichuan's house for the first time, my face was full of uneasiness. I was very afraid of Song Lichuan's father. Even though every time I ran into him, he would smile gently and greet me, I would still be afraid that he would clench his fist and grab my hair in the next second. None of what I worried about happened. When Father Song saw me coming, he just raised his hand and patted Song Lichuan on the back and instructed, "Your younger sister Yin Yin is here. Hurry up and lead her to your room to play. If you have any delicious or fun things, You have to share them with your sister, okay? Song Lichuan, who is the same age as me, took my hand and replied crisply, okay. This is the biggest difference between me and Song Lichuan. He grew up in love and can even generously share half of the love he has with me. After such a long time, you really haven't changed at all. Why are you still so taciturn? Suddenly, there was a chill on my neck. I shrank my neck and frowned and looked at the culprit. Song Lichuan's apology came in time. He stretched out his hand and sat down in front of me with a smile in his eyes, for seasoned spring macchiato, ice-free, sugar-free, with taro balls. Am I right? Your favorite. I took it and poked the pointed end of the straw to the bottom. After taking a sip of milk tea, I replied, you haven't changed either. You are still so childish and talkative. Song Lichuan leaned on the back of the chair. His black hair fell finely, with a bit of carelessness. It's just good for you. If I didn't grow up with you, I would at least be a cold and handsome male god. Song Lichuan sighed, unfortunately, you have been an iceberg since you were a child. If I were a mountain again, it would be difficult to say 12 words to you in 12 years. I curved my lips and smiled without commenting. How have you been these years? Song Lichuan continued to chat with me. Very good. I have already lived a retired life in advance. What about you? After graduating from university, I went to be a wild photographer for 2 years and dealt with nature. But I was injured some time ago. My mother was so scared that she cried. I can't let her worry anymore. Saying that, Song Lichuan shrugged helplessly. Now I can only wash my hands and prepare to open a studio. It sounds a bit pity. I folded my arms and raised my eyebrows and teased, but at your age, you can still experience the passion of young people starting a business. It's like going back to 18. Song Lichuan pretended to be angry. When I was not on guard. Raised his hand and wanted to knock on my forehead. I subconsciously dodged by turning my head. Song Lichuan's hand froze in mid-air. For a moment, the atmosphere was tense. Song Lichuan casually withdrew his hand and used joking to skip over this episode. Forget it. This young and handsome man who has returned to 18, have nothing to say to you, an old person. Song Lichuan and I walked and stopped and visited many places we used to love to go. Towards evening, Song Lichuan drove me to my doorstep. Just as I was about to say goodbye, the hand hanging by my side was held. Song Lichuan held my hand and clenched his palm. Yin Yin, I invited you out this time to tell you. I like you. I lowered my eyes and looked at the hands that Song Lichuan and I were holding. Then I moved my gaze to Song Lichuan's face. For the college entrance examination application, you didn't fill in Beijing. Instead, you went to another city. Is it because you saw my confession to you on the last page of my exercise book? That should be considered an implicit rejection? Song Lichuan frowned. There was a trace of eagerness in his eyebrows, because at that time, I thought that you were only unable to distinguish between love and dependence, so you were moved by me. Later, I found out that I was ridiculously wrong. I was clearly the one who couldn't tell the difference. Song Lichuan looked down at me. He was waiting for my answer. You are right. I replied softly and at the same time broke free from Song Lichuan's restraint. I really didn't distinguish between love and dependence back then. At that time, we were inseparable. Only you took care of me, were good to me, and shared everything with me. I haven't felt much love, so naturally I thought that was love. The words on the tip of my tongue poured out along with my slightly trembling breath, but now I find that love is not unilaterally taking everything the other person has. Love can make people stupid. Even if they have nothing themselves, and even if they clearly know that the other person is not lacking in love, they will still willingly offer that small piece of barren sincerity. Love is like this. It's not good, but it's not too bad either. I paused and solemnly met Song Lichuan's gaze. So, you will always be like an elder brother in my heart. It was like this before, and it won't change in the future. The evening wind blew by, making the hair by my ear messy. After a long silence, Song Lichuan suddenly burst out laughing. He knocked on my head with 2 fingers put together. It didn't hurt. But it made me blink twice in confusion. Such a long speech about love actually came out of your mouth? I misjudged. You are not unchanged. You have changed too much. Tell me, who did you fall in love with? Why didn't you bring him back this time and let me take a look? The atmosphere eased. I didn't hide it from Song Lichuan. I shook my head and answered truthfully, There is no possibility between me and him. Song Lichuan knows me. He knows that I am not the kind of person who would easily say such discouraging words. Song Lichuan didn't persuade me anymore. He just smoothed the messy hair by my ear for me and said softly, "The wind is rising. Go back quickly." I watched Song Lichuan drive away. The moment I turned around, I came face to face with Chen Wangjin across the road. He didn't know how long he had been standing there watching. The faint spark between his fingers flickered on and off. A sense of powerlessness arose spontaneously. After living together for 3 years, Chen Wangjin and I have clearly done many of the most intimate things. But there is always an insurmountable gap between us. Just like now, I never knew that Chen Wangjin would smoke. A cold wind swept over with fine raindrops. I shrank and walked past Chen Wangjin as if I didn't see him. "Who is he?" Chen Wangjin suddenly spoke. "My blind date." I lowered my eyes and entered the password, replying calmly. "You came back and left me just to marry him?" Chen Wangjin pressed on, his tone even colder than the late summer evening wind. I didn't say anything. So Chen Wangjin took it as a default. He suddenly reached out and grabbed my shoulder, pressing closer step by step. What's so good about him compared to me? Money, power? I had nowhere to retreat. My back was pressed against the wall. Or is he better at serving you than me? Chen Wangjin approached. The choking smell of tobacco stimulated my fragile nerves and made me more awake. I didn't want to be outdone and looked up to confront Chen Wangjin. Didn't I make it clear enough in the text message? I repeated the content of the text message with calm eyes. We should never have any contact in this life. Why? Before I finished speaking, Chen Wangjin asked in a nearly out-of-control deep voice. The hand he held on my shoulder unconsciously tightened, causing a faint pain. I said word by word, "Everything gets boring after a while. It's been 3 years. I also want to change my taste. Can't I?" As the last rainstorm fell, the unique summer heat was quenched. Chen Wangjin never appeared again, and my life returned to normal. I had just walked a few steps out of the supermarket carrying a bag. Suddenly, a black shadow rushed towards me and knocked me staggering a few steps. The bottles and jars in the bag were broken all over the ground. I frowned and looked at the person who came. Just one glance made my body tremble uncontrollably. "Yin Yin, Dad finally found you." The long-lost voice sounded, instantly dragging me back to Avachi hell. Lin Fengyuan knelt on the ground, with old tears streaming down. It was all Dad's fault back then that our family was forced to be separated for so many years. But Dad has changed now. More and more people were attracted by this farce and gathered around. This young girl is quite hard-hearted at such a young age. She is so indifferent to her own biological father. Even if her father was wrong first, but after all, he is the elder who gave birth to her and raised her. What can't be forgiven? As the center of discussion, my face was so pale that there was no trace of blood. When I was young, I dreamed countless times about the scene of meeting Lin Fengyuan again. But no matter which direction the dream took, it would eventually turn into a bloody mutual destruction. Lin Fengyuan is a chronic illness rooted in my body. As long as he is alive for one day, I will never be at peace in my life. My gaze fell on the broken glass by my feet, a small sharp piece. If I cut Lin Fengyuan's throat, he will die soon. Then everything will be over. I pressed my constantly trembling hand and hadn't taken any action yet. In the next moment, I was pulled into a warm embrace. Is fraud already so blatant now? Chen Wangjin's warm palm stroked my back. I came back to my senses from the state of being haunted. My girlfriend's father just passed away not long ago. I watched him being pushed into the crematorium with my own eyes. You jumping out and pretending to be a corpse now has a bad social impact, right? With just a few words from Chen Wangjin, the originally onlooking crowd changed their views again. It turns out to be a fraud. I said why the nice young girl had no expression. It turns out that it touched her sore spot. She lost her father at a young age. So pitiful. Isn't this a human trafficker? Call the police. Hurry up and call the police so that he won't run away and harm others again. Lin Fengyuan still wanted to argue, but when he heard the words, "call the police," his face suddenly changed. He got up and ran away in a panic. With no more excitement to watch, the people around also dispersed. Are you okay? Chen Wangjin held my wrist and looked at me with some worry. Why are you here? I asked in return, and my gaze followed Chen Wangjin's baseball cap on his head all the way down. When I caught sight of the fact that he was not wearing formal clothes but instead wearing a rivet leather jacket, my pupils couldn't help shrinking. And, what's with this outfit of yours? Chen Wangjin avoided my inquiring gaze, and his dark eyes were flickering. On a whim, changed to a new style. Oh. I didn't intend to ask further and turned to leave. Chen Wangjin called me and asked, "Does that person just now need me to help you deal with him?" I shook my head, indicating no need. I can handle my own affairs. I didn't tell my mother about Lin Fengyuan's appearance. I didn't want her to be frightened, so I just told her that it's not peaceful recently and asked her to go out less. At the same time, I called the police. But the reply I got was that without substantial harm, they couldn't handle it. Moreover, he is still my father. The mobile phone on the table vibrated. It was a text message from Lin Fengyuan. "Lin Yin, don't you think that by hiding from me, I won't be able to find you and your mother? If you piss me off, it won't just be texting. Your mother is old. She has been beaten so many times before to protect you. You don't want her to be frightened again, do you? I know you have money. You give me 500,000. After I pay off my gambling debts, I promise I will never disturb you again. After all, I am your father. You can't bear to really watch me have my hand cut off, can you?" Of course, I don't believe Lin Fengyuan's nonsense. He can blackmail me once and there will be a second time. So, I need to think of a way to get rid of the trouble forever. After thinking for a long time, I typed down an address. "Wait for me here tomorrow night. I will bring cash." As the sun was setting, the time agreed with Lin Fengyuan was almost here. I changed into inconspicuous clothes and went out carrying a suitcase. When I arrived at the alley entrance, Lin Fengyuan had already arrived. He paced back and forth anxiously inside. When he saw me coming, his eyes lit up. I threw the suitcase in my hand to the ground. The suitcase fell heavily, and stacks of cash inside fell out. Lin Fengyuan hurriedly bent down to pick them up. The street lights in this alley are in disrepair and only emit a hazy light. Even so, it can still illuminate the greed in Lin Fengyuan's eyes. "Dad knew you had a way. With this money, I will definitely be able to make a comeback." Lin Fengyuan counted one by one, with a layer of ecstasy on his face. I watched him silently and chuckled. Sure enough, this laughter attracted Lin Fengyuan's attention. He looked at me warily. "What are you laughing at?" "Laughing at your stupidity," I replied. "Do you really think I can be manipulated by you? 500,000. Just extortion and blackmail are enough for you to suffer." I said it lightly, but Lin Fengyuan's face suddenly changed. He was fierce on the outside but weak on the inside, and shouted at me in a trembling voice, "I am your father. It is only right and proper for you to give me money." I remained calm and continued to provoke Lin Fengyuan with words. "Really? Keep these words for when you talk to the police later." Lin Fengyuan gritted his teeth, and a violent aura surged from his whole body. "You little bitch, you actually dared to call the police? I should have beaten you to death back then." There was a trace of madness in his eyes. I know that Lin Fengyuan has gone crazy. He wants to avoid debts and his spirit has been in a highly tense state for a long time. The slightest disturbance will crush him. Not to mention that I gave him hope but then shattered it in an instant. I watched Lin Fengyuan randomly pick up the fruit knife I put in the suitcase and approach me step by step. "Since you won't let me live, then I will drag you down with me even if I die," Lin Fengyuan said viciously. He brandished the knife and stabbed at me suddenly. In a flash, the expected pain didn't come. I was pushed away from behind and fell heavily to the ground. The sound of the knife stabbing into the flesh and the sound of suppressed groans sounded together. I looked up in disbelief. I saw Chen Wangjin kneeling on the ground. Endless blood gushed out along the handle of the knife, staining his spotless shirt. The strong contrast between red and white burned my eyes. When Lin Fengyuan saw the blood, he suddenly woke up and instinctively ran out of the alley. I didn't care about anything else and hurriedly went to check Chen Wangjin's injury. His face was as pale as paper, and his bloodless lips were tightly pursed. "Lin Yin." I held Chen Wangjin's cold hand and replied with suppressed sobs, "I'm here." I comforted Chen Wangjin with one hand and picked up the mobile phone that had fallen on the ground to call an ambulance with the other hand. Chen Wangjin leaned his head on my shoulder. His voice was very soft. "That rainy day, you kissed me. You said before that when having a friends with benefits relationship, there should be 3 chapters of agreement. No kissing in bed and no acquaintance out of bed. I thought that when you kissed me on your own initiative, we should be considered legitimate lovers. But you turned around and left me to marry someone else and said you were tired of me. This isn't fair. Clearly I have liked you for longer than 3 years. Chen Wangjin said intermittently. There was a little more grievance in his usually gentle and calm voice. The heart is like a carbonated drink that has been shaken too much. The surging emotions drowned my throat. I was breathing rapidly and squeezed out my love through sobs. I like you. Warm tears splashed on Chen Wangjin's neck along my cheeks. He paused, and there was a hint of unreal smile in his ending tone. Isn't it that seeing that I'm about to die, you say something nice to make me happy? No. You won't die. I shook my head desperately. Chen Wangjin raised his hand and wiped away my tears. Can you kiss me? This was the first real kiss between me and Chen Wangjin. The lips touched gently, mixed with salty tears. It was ridiculous and pitiful in this situation. The sound of police sirens rang out one after another. Chen Wangjin was lifted onto an ambulance. Song Lichuan followed behind a group of policemen. He supported me whose legs were weak. Sorry, I'm one step late again. My attention was all on Chen Wangjin not far away and I didn't hear clearly. I originally wanted to go to the hospital with Chen Wangjin, but on the way, I was stopped by the police to make a statement. By the time I arrived, Chen Wangjin had already finished the operation and was resting in the ward. How are you feeling now? Facing my worried look, Chen Wangjin smiled and raised his lips. Don't worry. It's fine now. I opened my lips. Looking at Chen Wangjin like this, I couldn't say anything. I could only blame myself for not being careful enough. Don't frown. This pain is nothing. Compared to the heartache of seeing it happen to you, it is insignificant. My ears were burning. The atmosphere suddenly became ambiguous. In the next second, the door was pushed open heavily. Why did you end up in the hospital again? I turned my head to look. It was a man with red hair and very punk dress. When our eyes met, the other party immediately piled up a smile. This must be sister-in-law. I am Chen Wangjin's friend, Li Sai. I also smiled at him and keenly caught the key word in his words. You just said again? Li Sai pulled over a chair and sat down familiarly. Chen Wangjin actually didn't tell you, sister-in-law? He took out an apple very naturally from the fruit basket he brought, wiped it, and took a bite. In order to marry you, he endured more than 20 lashes of family rules. I have to say that old man Chen is really ruthless. Usually he calls his precious grandson one mouthful at a time. But when it comes to beating you, he is not soft-hearted at all. That's called torn skin and flesh. He didn't even give medicine and just threw him into the ancestral hall to kneel as punishment without even giving a sip of water. Li Sai chewed on the apple and cast a horrible expression at Chen Wangjin. He didn't notice Chen Wangjin's cold eyes at all. Speaking of this, I'm quite sorry to you, sister-in-law. His topic jumped too quickly. I casually asked one more question, why? When Chen Wangjin knelt until the 3rd day, the wound became infected and he had a high fever. When he was carried out, he was unconscious but he insisted that I water his flowers. Li Sai awkwardly scratched his neck, but I think it's not good for me, a big man, to set foot in your love nest. So I gave the address to his secretary. I didn't expect such a thing to happen. I apologize to you. But Chen Wangjin's love for you is evident to heaven and earth. Who told you to talk so much? Get out and solve the outside matters. Chen Wangjin couldn't bear it anymore. He threw the pillow on the bed at Li Sai's head. This movement pulled his wound. Chen Wangjin groaned in pain. Who told you to move? Chen Wangjin leaned against the head of the bed and put on a weak look. It hurts. I took it seriously and was just about to call a doctor. But my wrist was circled by Chen Wangjin. If you kiss me, it won't hurt anymore. I sat back in my original position and helplessly held Chen Wangjin's hand back. I'm not a painkiller. If you don't kiss, how do you know if it works? I lowered my head and my lips touched Chen Wangjin's fingertips. His fingertips gently brushed across my lower lip, and a slight numbness passed through the corner of my lips. I covered up with a light cough, the flower that Li Sai mentioned. Is it the rose I raised? Chen Wangjin let me play with his fingertips. The corner of his lips raised a shallow arc, asking knowingly. Isn't there only your flower at home? I licked my dry lower lip and continued. On the day I left, I brought the flower back too. But I don't know why, I can't raise it as well as you. It seems that this big task of raising flowers can only be left to me. Chen Wangjin lowered his eyes and his gaze on me was so gentle that it almost melted. I just don't know if you have a place to take me in. I met Chen Wangjin's gaze. What identity will you move in with? Your future husband. I was stunned. Something was pushed to the base of my ring finger. I summoned up my courage to look. The ring was shining in the light. When did you? That night I thought you were asleep and secretly measured it. It seems quite accurate. Chen Wangjin took a deep breath. His tone was gentle and firm. For this identity, are you willing? I am willing. Chen Wangjin leaned down. The second kiss fell on the corner of my lips. Lin Fangyuan was arrested faster than I imagined. Extortion, intentional injury, and the domestic violence crime from several years ago that I added. There are both witnesses and evidence. Coupled with Chen Wangjin's refusal to reconcile. He will be in prison for a lifetime. The shadow that I originally thought would haunt me all my life dissipated. Today is a good day. Let's eat hot pot to celebrate. How about it? I held Chen Wangjin's arm and suggested. Chen Wangjin's eyes curved into a long and narrow corner. He complied with all my requests. Okay. And the succulent grape cake from that dessert shop. Let's buy it on the way. What else? I can't think of it for the time being. Let's talk about it on the way. I held Chen Wangjin's warm palm. The chill of late autumn was completely dispelled. The chronic illness accumulated in my body for years was taken out and filled with a heavy and light love.